it's April Garwood from Banana Moon Studio. I am nearly finished with a new crochet design, and it's going to be a wrap. Let's see if I can pick this up. This hasn't been blocked yet, but so it's going to kind of go over my shoulders like this. It's made in Bruges Lace, and at the very end I'm going to join the two ends. So it's a big rectangle, but the two ends are going to be joined together as you work the very last row. And so I want to show you how to do that final joining. When the pattern is finished, it will be a free pattern on my website, and there will be so my website is bananamoonstudio.com, and so you'll be able to find it there, but I'll also have a direct link to this new crochet pattern on my website in the video description. And also check the description for a link to subscribe to my newsletter, which is twice monthly, and I think that's what you need to know. So anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around and show you how this final joining is done. So this is the wrap, and it's maybe hard to tell right now, but this is a rectangle. So one end of it is here, and it goes around the back, and then the other end comes and joins right along here. So I want to show you, you'll as you work on this pattern, you'll learn how to work in Bruges Lace. I have a video demonstrating that, and so you'll kind of understand the joining technique a little bit. But what's going to happen, this is the last turning, and this is the very last column here. As you work this very last column, you will be joining the chain loops on this side to the long edge of the other end of the rectangle. So this is, the first column right here, and so this is the short edge of the first side of the rectangle, and you're working back and forth this way. So as you come around the rectangle and you begin working the very last column, you'll be joining to the chain loops at the top of the turnings and the chain loops in between the turnings. So after you make sorry, my ends aren't moving in yet. After you make the chain loop at the top of the last turning, your next chain loop will be joining inside this turning, your last turning. But the next chain loop that's on the outside of this turn is going to join to the chain loop at the top of your very first turning. And the next chain loop along this side is going to be extra long, and it's going to join into the joining that's between your first and second turning. The next chain loop along this side will join the chain loop at the top of your second turning. And then the next two chain loops along this side will join into the joining between your second and third turnings. And then you'll join at the top of the third turning, and then you'll join to the join in between the third and fourth turnings. So, and it gets hard to see because now the back of the wrap is under, so I'll kind of pull that out. So you'll kind of see the pattern here. To the top of the turning, and then to the space in between, to the top of the turning, and then two of them to the space in between, to the top of the turning and the space in between, to the top of the turning, and then two of them to the space in between, and the top of the turning and the space between. And so that's kind of the pattern, space between, top of the turning. And here, this is, so at this point, I've joined this to the top, well, not to the top of this turning, but basically this is my ending point here, except that I'm going to come across and then join one last chain section to the space between the turnings here. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to undo this last column, and then I'm going to start stitching it again and show you how it goes as I'm making it. What I have done first, now that I've undone the join, I went ahead and placed stitch markers in all the places I'm going to be joining. So this again is the first side that I worked on, the first end. So this here was my very first column that I made. So the chain loop at the top of the first turning is where I'm going to have a stitch marker, and then the join in between the next two turnings, and at the top of the second turning, and the join in between the next two, and then the stitch marker at the top of the third turning, and the join between the third and fourth turnings, the top of the fourth turning, the join between the fourth and fifth turnings, the fifth turning, the join between the fifth and sixth turnings, the sixth turning, and then the next join between turnings. And if I mark all those spots, those are going to be the places where I will be joining together as I work the last column. So the point at which I'm ready to begin joining is partway through my last turning. I have 3 chain loops joined together in this turning, and I need to do one more, and this is going to be the chain loop at the top of this turning. And here I'm ready to begin joining to the other end of my wrap. So I will put my hook in my loop, and I'm going to chain 2, and then the first turning where I've marked this chain loop, I'll go ahead and take this stitch marker out, and in the third chain I will be joining. So I'll place my hook in the third chain, slip stitch here, and then chain 2. And then I'm going to have to turn my work. That's where this gets a little bit complicated, because you can't just leave it laying out nice and flat the whole time. And I'll work my 3 stitches. After those 3 stitches, I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to complete my turning by slip stitching over here. And then I chain 2 and turn my work. I'll make my 3 double crochet stitches for this row. And then I am ready to join at my next marker. Now, because I am, how do I explain this? This spot where I need to join is a little further away from this column that I'm making, so my chain loops that go down into these spots between the turnings, my chain loops are going to be longer. So I will chain 4 here. Oops, I lost my yarn there. Okay, 3 and 4. And I'll take this stitch marker out. And I will place my hook in the same chain where I joined before and slip stitch. And chain 4. Turn my work. And make my 3 stitches here. Now at this point I'm going to be doing my standard joining as I go down this column. I finished my turning, so I will chain 2 and join to the next open loop, which is going to be here. And chain 2, turn, and make my 3 stitches. And I'll chain 2 and join at the top of the next turning in this marked chain loop. In the 3rd chain, and turn and make my 3 stitches. And now I'll chain 2, and I'm going to find the next open chain loop along this column and join there. And turn. And now I'll make my 3 stitches. And I'll chain 2, and okay, so these stitch markers are helping me keep track of which joining I'm working on, whether it's the standard one or the ending join. But at this point I'm actually ready to connect to this space between turnings. So instead of chain 2 here, I'm going to need chain 4, and I'll remove this stitch marker. And join in the same chain where they were joined together before. And chain 4. And turn. And work my 3 stitches. And then I'll chain 2, and this is just my standard joining that I've been doing all along. So I'll find the next open chain loop and join to the 3rd chain of that, and chain 2 and turn and make my 3 stitches. And I'm on my stitch marker side again, so that lets me know this is the different joining. Now at this point I'm going to join to this spot again, because we kind of have a pattern here of we're going to join to the top of a turning, and then we'll join in the space between turnings. We'll join in the top of a turning, and then twice we're going to join into the space between turnings. So I'll chain 4 here, and join in that same spot, and chain 4, and turn, 3 stitches. Okay, I'm going to place a stitch marker in this loop just to make sure it doesn't come undone. And then I'm going to lay this out flat again so we can take a look at it. And at that point, we'll be just about finished. Okay, there we go. So what I have shown you so far is here. This was the first join, and then this one, and now I have the 2 here together in this space. There's nothing new here. At this point, you have the tools that you need in order to finish this. Just remember that pattern of 1 join here, 2 joins here. The next space will have 1, and the next space will have 2, okay? So you're going to join in the top of a turning, once in the space between, and the top of a turning, twice in the space between, and then you'll repeat that pattern until you get to the end. And here is the last chain loop that I'll be joining to on this side. As I work this last column, I'll come up here and I'll make a join here. And at that point, I don't want to make my column any longer. So the very last thing I'm going to do is chain 4 and join in this space between. There'll already be another join here from this chain, or from further down. But I will chain 4 and then I'm going to fasten off there. So really that's everything you need to know in order to do this joining. I hope that you love this pattern, and I know this joining is a little bit complicated, but I think it's worth it, because otherwise how would you connect the ends together? It really makes a lot of sense to join as you go. So totally worth it, I think. Anyhow, make sure that you find the free pattern on my website, bananamoonstudio.com, and that you check the description for the direct link, the link to subscribe to my newsletter. And please remember to like, subscribe, share, and leave your comments, and have a lovely day.